How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the Congressional Slavery Reparations hearing. Now, there were quite a few individuals there, many famous, many not so famous. Danny Glover spoke. Ta-Nehisi Coates, who wrote a book on the subject, he was there. Coleman Hughes, a very intelligent young man, he spoke. Former football player Burgess Owens, and many others. Cory Booker was there, obviously. You know, he got to give his 2 cents, but before we even get into it, let's talk about when this event took place. This was yesterday, Wednesday, June 19th, Juneteenth. And that's a pretty significant day because that represents the end of slavery for many people in Black America. Although slavery in the South ended officially, according to Emancipation, on January 1st, 1863, many parts of the South did not get that news because it wasn't no television, no radio, really, no internets. So how are you going to be able to tell somebody that they're free in a quick fashion? News did not reach Galveston, Texas until June 19th, 1865, that the slaves had been freed. So that particular day has been recognized widely as the end of slavery and the emancipation of Black people, Juneteenth. But to get to the actual congressional hearing, this is really interesting. Danny Glover said a few words. Most of the people that spoke, in my humble opinion, did not say too much that you wouldn't expect. They say, oh, slavery was a stain on America. It was a tragedy. And of course, that's true. But, you know, that's not anything new. That's not really going to add to the conversation about reparations because people were there. A lot of them had on their ADO shirts, American Descendants of Slaves. They're looking for actual progress to happen. Are we getting the check? What's going to be the result? Is it going to be land, governance of ourselves as a Black people? What are we going to do? There was not much in the way of that. And if you want to see the actual hearing, I'll link that in the description box below. But there were some good points. Burgess Owens, who is a fantastic man, excellent individual, former football player, he wrecked the panel, in my humble opinion, with these words.
Let's point to the party that was part of slavery, KKK, Jim Crow, that has killed over 40% of our Black babies, 20 million of them. State of California, 75% of our Black boys cannot pass standard reading and writing tests, a Democratic state. How about a Democratic Party pay for all the misery brought to my race? And those, after we learn our history, decide to stay there, they should pay also. They're complicit. And every white American, Republican or Democrat, that feels guilty because of your white skin, you should need to pony up also.
And I tend to agree with him here. If you're going to pay reparations, which probably won't happen, but we get to that in a moment. But if you're going to pay it, who should be responsible? The Democratic Party, because they are the ones who have been doing things to hurt all Americans, especially Black Americans, since slavery was going on. Let's not forget, the Republican Party was started as an abolitionist movement. The first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, freed the slaves. So we can't ignore that. And the Republican ideals have always, in my humble opinion, been the best thing for Black people. The Democrat ideas have not. I mean, you're talking about abortion, drugs, all type of things, you know, bad schools, failing cities. These are the policies of Democrats. So if anybody is to pay, it should be them. And also, if you feel guilty about slavery, if you just have that white guilt and you can't get rid of it, hey, you pay too. You just take a chunk of your check every week, month, or what have you, every year, and put that in the reparations pot and make you feel better if you do that. So, you know, go for it. Now, I know what I'm not going to do is pay my money. Reparations is going to come from the federal government, if I'm not mistaken. So why would I pay my money to get more money back? It don't make no sense. You know, this whole thing is just kind of silly. And I'm glad that Burgess Owens was able to point it out. Now, there was another individual by the name of Coleman Hughes, very intelligent young man. He spoke. He is a liberal Democrat, not even a Republican at all. Although what he said will have some people label him as a Republican. I'm looking at BBC. They outright said Republican commentator or something, Coleman Hughes. Even though in his testimony he said, I've only voted for Democrats, although I'll be labeled as a Republican because of what I'm going to say here. And he was correct. Check out what he said.
In 2008, the House of Representatives formally apologized for slavery and Jim Crow. In 2009, the Senate did the same. Black people don't need another apology. We need safer neighborhoods and better schools. We need a less punitive criminal justice system. We need affordable health care. And none of these things can be achieved through reparations for slavery. Nearly everyone close to me told me not to testify today. They told me that even though I've only ever voted for Democrats, I'd be perceived as a Republican and therefore hated by half the country. Others told me that by distancing myself from Republicans, I would end up angering the other half of the country. And the sad truth is that they were both right. That's how suspicious we've become of one another.
Now, I like this guy. I've seen him before. I saw him on Dave Rubin, and I like how he is a sensible liberal guy. I'm not going to be agreeing with most of what he says, or probably about half of what he says, but it's okay because I can respect somebody like that is sensible, that's not shrieking at you, that's not hollering at you, that comes at things from a logical point of view. And he's a young man. Maybe once he gets a little bit older, he's like 23 right now. Once he gets older, he may come to my side of the fence. I don't know. But right now, regardless of what he does, I respect him for his views. And what he said here was right. It's like, look, why should I get the payments? I grew up in a nice household, privileged. My parents loved me, gave me a great education. Why would I get reparations? It doesn't make any sense. Get it at those that actually need it. And he also talked about the whole thing of ancestry. He said, my ancestry shouldn't prevent me from being able to get reparations if that's going to be given out, or something to the equivalent of that. And the reason why he said that is because of this whole ADOS movement, American descendants of slaves. People are trying to say, if you don't have ancestry that links you back to the ship, the slave ship, then you should not be getting reparations. But my question is, how do you even determine that? You have to understand, a lot of Americans, not just black people, but a lot of Americans can't even really identify the great grandparents. So how are you going to identify both sets of parents all the way back to the ship? Maybe if you got here in the last batch of slaves in the 1860s, but what if you have been here since 1611, 1619, or whenever Jamestown happened? I was born in West Virginia, so a lot of them people in Kanawha County probably came from Tidewater. You're talking about the very first slaves. My granddad lived in Southern Virginia, like South Boston, that area, before he came to Roanoke, Virginia. So, I mean, you're talking about some of the first people to come here from Africa, 1600s, 1700s. How are we going to go all the way back there and identify who was who? And then people say, oh, if you have a grandma that came from the Caribbean, you're not qualified to be ADOS and you don't get reparations. It's a silly thing to think about. So what he said here was correct from his point of view by being a liberal. And in general, it was correct. I can agree with him in what he said, although I don't think there should be any kind of reparations at all. I've done videos about this. I did a debate that went viral on RT, and I still hold to it. It's a silly thing. And the reality is, it's not going to happen. This conversation is not really new. It's become more popular over the past, I say, year or so, ever since Trump got elected, which is funny because we had Barack Obama in there for 8 years, and there was never really a big debate under him. It was never really brought to the table to Obama himself to say, hey, reparations, how about it? That was never really a big deal, but I digress. My point is that it's interesting how now that Trump is in office, all of a sudden it's become more popular. But it's not a new idea. This has been discussed since the end of slavery. You're talking about 1860, over 150 years ago. So it's not a new idea. I think all that we have right now, all the government benefits, EBT, WIC, TANF, Section 8, food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, I think all those things are all you're going to get from the government. Reparations will be just one more government entitlement that we're going to have to pay, and we're struggling to pay what we have right now. The debt is through the roof. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to happen. People can talk about it, and that's fine. And people can be optimistic. That's fine, too. If you believe in the tooth fairy and Santa Claus, then good on you. But I'm a grown man. I don't believe in that. I believe in the ability of myself to work with others and get things done that do not require me to take from the next man or to take from myself. Because like I said, it'll come from the federal government. I pay federal taxes, so I'll be getting my own money back to me. As I close, I want to say this. I think these talks are interesting. I don't think they're really beneficial or effective. I think one thing it does is shows you where Black Americans are on this particular topic, and also where politicians are. The Democratic Party, they've been pressed on it, talking about, reparations. Are we going to get it? Are we not going to get it? It's funny to see how they squirm. It's funny to see how they try to maneuver around it. They're not going to really answer the question directly. Most of them won't. They'll say, well, we'll talk about it, have the conversation. We've been talking for 100 years. What's going to be the next actual step? Nothing really, more than a campaign promise, in my humble opinion. But that is pretty much all I got. So what say you? Do you think that this topic, this debate was interesting, not interesting? What's going to be the result of it? Will there be a check cut? Will there be some kind of benefits given to Black Americans? And how are we going to determine who's Black, who's not? Is it going by DNA? If you have 50% DNA as a cutoff, what if you're 49%? Do you not get your reparations? You don't get your check? Do you get a certain amount based upon how much African DNA you have? And what if you got like 12%, but you look like Charlize Theron in the face? I mean, you 5'11", blonde hair, blue eye, white woman, but you got 10% African DNA. Do you get your check? There are so many questions. There are so many holes in the whole thing. That's why I say it's bogus. And then the biggest reason why I say it's bogus is because it'll come from my own pocket. How you going to take my money and give it back to me? It makes no sense. And beyond that, it'll take more than tax revenue to be able to pay for this. Where is the cash going to come from? You're talking about into the trillions of dollars to pay for a thing like this. But I'll leave that right there for now. Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. That's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.